Okay, boys and girls, welcome back to another F122 video. This is Benjamin Bok Choi. We are doing an online ranked race here at Suzuka, if you can see on screen, just using the time trial setup, lowering the tire pressure in the back to 21.3 and minimizing all tire pressures in the front, lowering the fuel down to 13.5. Not really quite sure what the best fuel load should be, as I haven't done a race at Suzuka in quite a bit, and I actually haven't done an online ranked race since the last video I put out, and not the one with the music behind it, the actual commentary behind it. So maybe four months, maybe even more than that. So I didn't get into qualifying early enough. I got in just right at the end, so I didn't get a qualifying time in. We are 4th out of 4 here. Decent launch. I haven't played this game in a little bit, hopped on to try the weekly event a little bit, and that's about it. So going into turn 1 here, Jesus Christ. Now I did have live commentary, and it pretty much consisted of me swearing after that contact there, and then complaining about the guy in front of me possibly being a pad user. As you can see, his lines are quite erratic here. So because I swore so much, I decided yeah, maybe I don't use that, because it was just swearing for the first lap, and then that was about it. As you can see, Jason Bourne spun out at some point during the S section there, and I'm following these two up ahead right now, trying to figure out if I want to stop for a new front wing, just because it's so early in the race, and we already had one guy spin out, and these two guys don't look exactly quick. So right now I'm just trying to stay as close to them as possible. Thought about for a second trying to get in front of this guy, but I figured since I have excuse me, I have front wing damage anyway, I'm probably going to be slow, so there's really no point. I don't want him to rear end me and then create even more damage, so I will sit behind him. That way I can keep him in front of me and react to him. But he has a pretty bad exit coming out of Spoon, and I just decided to turn on the overtake. Figured he's probably going to cause more damage being in front of me than behind me. If I can create a large enough gap, then he probably won't be too much to have to handle later on in the race. And so now the car is super understeery going into right-hand turns because of the front wing damage. And the guy behind us don't really know where he's going. He's taking the Latifi route, I suppose. Yeah, he's stopped right at the start-finish line. And Jason Bourne, P3, the guy that spun out right at the beginning, has already caught up to us now, 2.6 seconds. So I'm thinking, okay, if it was just Gilbert in front of me, I might stay on here. As you can see me checking again the damage, I might just stay on these tires with this front wing damage. But because the guy behind is catching up to us so quickly, I'm like, the quicker I get onto, or the quicker I put on a new front wing, the better the chances I have of eventually catching up. So as right now, I've decided I'm going to pit at the end of this lap. Now Phoenix and P4 probably not going to be too much of an issue. Gilbert up front probably not going to be too much of an issue anyway. But if I have to, yeah, and Jason Bourne catches up to us, I just let him go. No point in defending. He's going to get out in front of us anyway, and we're just going to lose time. So yeah, Gilbert, as long as everything else goes right for the rest of the race, we should be able to catch up to him and overtake him anyway. So right now I'm going to jump into the pits, somehow still getting purple sector 1. I don't know how that happened, with front wing damage and being stuck behind the slow car out in front. So Jason's going to try to overtake, goes off the track there. Gilbert's like, no, how dare you stick that up my pooper, stick this up your pooper, and then dives into the final chicane. And then I just dive into the pit lane here, forgetting to, yeah, alright, so forgetting to tell my pit crew that I'm coming in, so I didn't have the racing line assist. Luckily it came on right at the end there, and we managed to get in without too much of an issue. Going onto the hards, and my pit crew didn't change the front wing, as you can see now. Again, so with swearing on lap 1, and then swearing like again when I realized my front wing didn't get changed. Yeah, this was pretty upsetting. So now we are in P4, stuck behind Phoenix again, and the leaders are 23 seconds ahead of us. So I'm like, can I make it to the end on these hard tires and a busted wing? And going through these S's, I know that the tires are cold and they don't have any grip yet, especially on these hard compound tires. I'm like, god damn it, I'm gonna have to come back in and change the front wing and then lose even more time with an extra pit stop. once again. So not only do I have to lose the 5 or 6 seconds, actually it's probably more than that, like 7 seconds or so with changing the front wing, now I have to do 2 outlaps on really cold tires, one of which being the hard compound tires, and this was just super painful to get through. As you can see, not having any grip anywhere, can't get on the throttles early enough. So we come to the end of the lap here, and I'm about to come in once again. This time I forgot to forgot to tell my pit crew that I was coming in, so not having the grip and with the busted front wing, I don't slow down fast enough. We get the 5-second penalty. Come in here, lose the time with the front wing. So yeah, about 7.5 seconds lost getting the front wing on. But we are put onto the medium compound tires. I don't think they're going to go till the end or the better part of their life. It won't take us till the end. We shouldn't be in puncture territory, but we're going to be really, really slow towards the end of the race. So now exiting the pit lane for the second time in 4 laps now. We are 35 seconds behind Phoenix, 49 seconds behind Gilbert, and 54 seconds behind Jason Bourne in P1. Now the warming up on the mediums isn't quite as bad, and obviously now that we do have a working front wing, it's also not quite as bad. So it looks like we can still probably get P3. Now later on in lap 4, Gilbert decides to go in and pit, and we are gonna still come out behind him at this point. We were just too far back. I think we were like 48 seconds or so behind him when he went into the pit lane, and we are making up time to Phoenix, and I think we can probably manage to pull out a podium still. I know there's only 4 of us here anyway, but still can probably manage to pull out a P3. Phoenix still has to box for his required pit stop, and Gilbert is probably too far ahead of us at this point for us to catch up to him. But now Gilbert and Phoenix are fighting going into the S's, and look at this. All of a sudden, Gilbert stops. I get the Gilbert is out of the session here. Yellow flags going into the Suzuka S's. I don't know what happened there. I'm not going to put the blame on anybody. Obviously, I didn't see it anyway. I did save the replay, but you probably all know right now, if you save an online race replay, you can only see from your perspective anyway. So we passed Gilbert going into the S's. We are now guaranteed a P3. Phoenix is now only 23 seconds ahead, so we're still closing the gap in on him. Jason Bourne actually extending the gap a little bit on our warm-up lap, so he's about 56 seconds ahead right now. So at this point, I'm thinking, okay, maybe P2 is possible, starting P4 and finishing P2, even if it is only a 4-car lobby here. It should still help me with my rating, my safety rating. Actually, I'm not quite sure. We did make contact, and then, of course, I spin out here like a moron. So I'm like, do I still have, what's the gap going to be? How much time did we lose there? Luckily for us, our tires are still in a pretty good temperature range, still under 100 degrees. So the gap now to leader, 1 minute and about 1 second, and the gap to Phoenix is now about 27 seconds as he goes into the pit lane. So if I didn't have that little spin there, I think I would have come out in front of Phoenix. Right now, racing down the start-finish line, I thought maybe I might have been still able to get out in front of him, but I see him coming out of the pit lane just as we clear the barriers there. So he is going to come out in front of us, and I don't want to be stuck behind him, even though I know that I'm probably not going to catch up to P1 right now. I still want to get out in front of Phoenix here and try to have the best race as possible. So they're having to stomp on the brakes because I thought he was going to turn into us, and luckily for us, he doesn't hit us, and we get to continue our race. Now, the last thing I want is to have to go into the pits and change the front wing once again, but he is just so slow. No offense to anybody here. Everybody is at a different level, but it's still annoying for me when I'm stuck behind a slow driver. So luckily for us, coming out of the hairpin there, he gets a really terrible exit. We get a much better exit, and we have plenty of battery there, so just put on the overtake. Don't know what kind of setup he might be using, but even with overtake, we weren't really pulling too far ahead of him there. But again, we kind of compromised his turn into there a little bit, so he gets a terrible exit coming out of Spoon, and then we managed to gap him by 1.2 seconds after 2 corners. So now I'm thinking, alright, so only P2 is going to be possible. Obviously, Jason Bourne in P1 still has to box. He hasn't made his mandatory pit stop yet, but again, it's only going to be 25 seconds maybe at the most. Suzuka is not a terrible pit lane when it comes to time loss, but it's not a super long. It's no Singapore or Silverstone or anything like that. So even if he had to do 2 pit stops, I still probably wouldn't be able to catch up. So now just starting lap 8, about to finish sector 1, and Jason Bourne does go in for his pit stop right now. As you can see, my driving isn't all that great either. Like I said, haven't raced at Suzuka in quite a bit, haven't raced in this game in quite a bit, a few months, and my time trial rankings, I think my best lap is only like 2600 in the world on PC. So I usually rank somewhere between like 1500 and 2200 for most of the tracks, and at this track it is at 2600, so one of my worst tracks in this game. But yeah, he comes out of the pit lane. The interval hasn't updated yet. It's still saying 1 minute 3 seconds, 1 minute 4 seconds when he's already made his pit stop. That's what the gap was before he went into the pit lane, so I know that it should be about 20-25 seconds. I should be about 20-25 seconds closer to him than what the interval states. So as we cross the finish line there, now it's starting to update a little bit, gap's starting to come down. This is more I like it. 41.5 seconds, 40.5 seconds, and still not really thinking that the win is going to be possible at this point. There's only about 4 laps left to go. Don't really know what that triangle, that orange triangle was that just popped up on the left hand side of the screen. I thought maybe I got underfloor damage from going over the curbs or something like that, but I checked my car model here, and there's no damage to the car, not that I can see anyway. I don't know if maybe that's just the game letting me know that my tires are starting to wear down a little bit. As you can see, they are yellow now at this point. They aren't fresh anymore, so I think it might have just been a warning for the tires or something, but I'm still not quite sure at this point. There's no damage to the car. It still feels fine, so don't really know what that means. If any of you guys knows what that symbol was, feel free to let me know in the comments section. So now we are coming to the end of lap 9, about to start lap 10. Take a look at the mini-map on the bottom left-hand side of the screen. That little black dot going under the bridge right now is Jason Bourne in the lead, and I'm not really quite sure what happened, as it seemed like he hit that corner fine right before the hairpin, but maybe he must have gotten a little snap of oversteer or something like that, and the car got loose. Yellow flags coming up, although it doesn't say anything on my screen, but there was yellow in that part of the track on the mini-map. So at this point, I haven't noticed. I've still got my head down, still just trying to finish out the race as best as I can. 20 seconds ahead of Phoenix now, so we're probably going to beat him no matter what. As long as I don't make any mistakes or anything like that. But yeah, it's been quite a bit since P1 made that mistake, and the gap still says 42 seconds. Only now is it starting to come down. I think it's because I have to pass the area where he made a mistake before the interval updates, which would make sense, as when he stopped for his pit stop, my interval didn't update until I passed the pit lane. So I think that must be the case. I know sometimes there are bugs where the intervals just don't change. It'll say somebody is like a lap behind, or somebody who's like 2 laps behind will be shown as being in the lead of the race. So I'm not really quite sure what's going on there. This game is a bit buggy after all. Quotation marks, just a bit. So now the gap is at 30 seconds. Once again, take a look at the mini map here. P1 just comes to a stop right after the S's, and again there is yellow on the track, but I am not getting a yellow warning, or my engineer is not telling me that there is yellow flags on the track. Maybe it's just because he got up and going really quickly after the yellow, but once again I'm still seeing only 31 seconds to P1, which was pretty much the same after that last incident. So now we come to the spot of the incident, and I think it should start updating. Yes, there it goes right now. Now the gap is starting to drop once again down to 22 seconds. So now I do realize that he has been making mistakes. I don't know if he's kind of just trying to flex his muscles and push for faster laps at the end of the race like I used to do. If I'm up by 40 seconds, I'm not pushing anymore, especially if P2 has a 5-second penalty like I do. I'm going to take it nice and easily. There's only 3 laps left to go, and I'm just going to make sure I make it to the end of the race and win. But not saying that that's what he's doing, but could explain why he had 2 incidents in 2 laps in the last few laps, and kind of ruined his race. So now I do notice that he's going into the pit lane. So he must have picked up damage either the first time or the second time, and he has to change his front wing. Otherwise, I would have to assume if he didn't have wing damage, he probably would have just stayed on those tires. Those are still relatively fresh anyway, and I'm not sure where he stopped in the pit lane, but it seems like he's taking an awfully long time, which means they must have changed his front wing. So now I am out in front of him. We are on lap 12, boys and girls. Just this lap and then 1 more lap to go. And he's still in the pit lane, just coming out of the pit lane now. Our gap to him is 8.2 seconds. So starting to sweat a little bit now. I thought I was going to have to settle for a P4, then maybe a P3, and then after some incidents, I thought maybe P2 would have been possible, but now we are actually racing for the win, and the guy behind us is 8.2 seconds, so I thought he's on brand new softs. He's definitely going to make up the 3 seconds to get within the 5-second penalty, and I make a mistake in the hairpin here, which doesn't help us. But then I realize, oh yeah, that's right, he's just pitted. He probably changed his tires as well, so he's probably going to need 1 more lap to heat up his tires. I don't think you can stay on the same tires. I don't think that's an option. So he had to have pit for a new set of softs, which means he needs the better part of this lap to heat up his tires. Now the gap is down to 7.7, 7.6. I'm using as much of my battery as I can to try and give me speed down the straights here, but I don't have much battery left. We are only 15% right now, and Suzuka, I guess Suzuka's okay for battery harvesting, but it's not the best or anything like that. Not too many hard braking zones to help harvest the battery. So gap now starting on the final lap, 7.5 seconds, and it is dropping. So he must have a little bit of battery as well going down the straights. He's definitely going to gain time on us going through the corners. Look at our tires. We are at 45%, 44% in the front, and 41% in the back. So the best of our tires are gone at this point. We're not in puncture territory, but we're not at our fastest. So the last thing I want to do is try and push, and then have a snap of oversteer, and then lose a few tenths. And right now I need every 1/10 of a second I can get. So going under the bridge here into the hairpin, we are at 6.5, 6.4. He is just gaining through every corner here. He just needs to make up 1.2 seconds now to take the victory, as we are carrying this 5-second penalty. Coming out of the hairpin now, 6 seconds. We are under 6 seconds now. Just a few more corners to go. We've got Spoon. We've got 130R. 130R, 180R, I can't remember which one it is. And then the final chicane. So coming out of Spoon, 5.6 seconds. Don't have much battery. I'm in the single digits now. 5.5. I decide to turn it off. I'm going to use it right as we come out of the chicane to try and help my acceleration as much as possible. Going into the chicane now, 5.4 seconds. And the gap is dropping. Couldn't get on throttle, couldn't go flat out. 5.2, we crossed the finish line. 5.18, 5.13, 5.11, 5.09, and we managed to barely hold on. I think if you'd have seen it, just 7/100ths of a second there to hold on. So yeah, quite an intense race after having not done any competitive racing here in a month. And kudos to Jason Bourne, really quick driver there. I wasn't expecting to see anybody with that kind of pace in a 4-person lobby on a Thursday night, but yeah, he was really, really quick. Gave me a run for my money there, and we both had to make 2 pit stops, and I barely pulled it out. So boys and girls, if you enjoyed that, please feel free to leave a like, comment, or subscribe. Stay tuned for more. Remember to eat and bok choy, and I'll see you guys in the next one.